Sarah Breedlove was born on the 23rd of December 1867 on a cotton plantation near Delta, Louisiana. Her parents, Owen and Minerva Breedlove, as well as her 5 older siblings, were born into slavery, working on Robert W. Birney's Madison Parish plantation. Eventually, the family became free and began working as sharecroppers. Unlike the rest of her family, Sarah was born free thanks to the Emancipation Proclamation of 1863. Sarah's early life was full of hardships. In 1872, her mother sadly passed away. Although the cause is unknown, it was most likely from cholera. Just a year later, her father also died. She was just 6 years old and was now an orphan. Following this, she went to Vicksburg, Mississippi, to live with her older sister, Luvenia, and her brother-in-law, Jess Powell. She was as young as 10 years old when she started working as a domestic servant. Sarah didn't receive any real education as a child. The best she got was literacy lessons on Sundays at her local church. She later stated that, "I had little or no opportunity when I started out in life." Sarah disliked living with her sister, as her brother-in-law mistreated her. Because of this, she married when she was just 14 to escape his abuse. Just 3 years later, she had a daughter called Alelia, who was born on the 6th of June 1885. When Sarah was just 20 years old, she became a widow after her first husband, Moses McWilliams, died just 2 years after the birth of their daughter. Subsequently, Sarah took her daughter to St. Louis, where her brothers had established themselves as barbers. Sarah then found work as a laundress, earning just over $1 a day. When she wasn't working, Sarah sang in the choir of the St. Paul African Methodist Episcopal Church. She soon became determined to give her daughter a formal education, as well as to become an educated woman herself. So, she began attending night school. A few years later, Sarah started to experience hair loss. This was due to a variety of factors, including skin disorders, harsh products, a poor diet, and the lack of hair washing. To improve her situation, Sarah started to experiment with hair care treatments as well as home remedies. In 1894, Sarah married a man called John Davies, yet they divorced around 9 years later. In 1904, she was hired by Annie Turnbow Malone as a commission agent. The products she sold for her employer were aimed at the African American hair care market. While Sarah was working for Malone, she began to develop her own products of hair treatment. She then moved to Denver, Colorado in July 1905. At that time, she was 37 years old. In Denver, she continued to work as a commission agent for a while, but then quit once she established herself as a hairdresser and retailer of cosmetic creams. Her former employer Malone accused Sarah of stealing her formula, yet the mixture had been around for hundreds of years. In January 1906, Sarah married a man she had known from when she lived in St. Louis. Her husband was a salesman called Charles Joseph Walker. Following this, Sarah was known as Madam C.J. Walker. The couple promoted the business, with Charles taking charge of advertising. One strategy that Madam Walker used was door-to-door selling. Slowly but surely, she taught other African American women how to properly look after their hair. In 1906, Madam Walker's 21-year-old daughter, Alelia, was put in charge of the mail order operation in Denver. Meanwhile, her mother and stepfather traveled throughout the South and Southeast, giving demonstrations of her Walker method in an attempt to expand the business. The Walker method involved preparing the scalp using special lotions such as shampoo, her custom-made pomade, as well as brushing hair with iron combs. This method promoted hair growth, improved the condition of the scalp, and made weak hair become soft and strong. Although Madam Walker had several competitors, making it difficult to break into the market, her personal approach to sales won her loyal customers. Her saleswomen were called beauty culturalists or Walker agents. They were successful in selling products by emphasizing the importance of health, cleanliness, and loveliness. Soon they became known in many African American communities throughout the states. As the business expanded, in 1908, Madam Walker and her husband moved to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. There, Walker established Lelia College to train hair culturists. Also, she opened a beauty parlor, further expanding the business. Madam Walker trained licensed sale agents, teaching them the Walker system. Her employees earned nice commissions, which allowed these women to be economically independent. Madam Walker's daughter, Alelia, was in charge of day-to-day operations in Pittsburgh. 2 years later, Madam Walker decided to set up her new base of operations in Indianapolis. As the new headquarters for the business, Madam Walker purchased a factory and built more hair salons and beauty schools to expand her business. She even bought herself a nice new home. By now, her company had become extremely successful. Madam C.J. Walker Manufacturing Company was making profits equivalent to several millions of dollars in today's money. It was also around this time that Alelia came up with the clever idea of establishing an office and a beauty salon in New York City. She saw how the Harlem neighborhood was growing, and within 3 years, it became a thriving area of African American culture. As the company was ever expanding, Madam Walker increased staff in order to cope. She hired many women into key management positions, even though this was uncommon at the time. Moreover, as she expanded her business, she started to voice her opinion. She became a major philanthropist and activist, trying to improve the lives of women and African Americans. In 1912, Walker spoke at an annual gathering of the NNBL, stating, "I am a woman who came from the cotton fields of the South. From there, I was promoted to the washtub. From there, I was promoted to the cook kitchen. And from there, I promoted myself into the business of manufacturing hair goods and preparations. I have built my own factory on my own ground." A year later, she donated a large amount of money to raise funds for the construction of a YMCA building in Indianapolis. She also created educational scholarships, donated money to elderly homes, as well as many other organizations, such as the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People and the National Conference on Lynching. From 1911 to 1919, business boomed. Walker's company employed thousands of people, many of whom were women. As profits increased, in 1913, Madam Walker and her husband Charles divorced. Around this time, she traveled to the Caribbean and parts of Latin America to promote her business. While traveling, she recruited new beauty culturalists, teaching them the Walker method. In 1916, she returned from her promotional campaign. Again, she relocated, leaving the operations in Indianapolis to her forewoman so she could move into a new townhouse in Harlem. From there, Madam Walker oversaw that business was running smoothly. By 1917, her company had trained nearly 20,000 women. Her employees were dressed in an unmistakable uniform which consisted of white shirts and black skirts. To sell her products efficiently, her commission agents would visit homes all over the US, offering their top range of products. This combined with the heavy advertising Walker did, such as in African American newspapers and magazines, led to her products selling in the masses. Nevertheless, Walker wasn't just about making money for herself. She gave back to the community, teaching other African Americans essential skills such as budgeting, how to start up a business and encouraged all to become financially independent. In 1917, she established the National Beauty Culturalist and Benevolent Association of Madam C.J. Walker agents. That year, the association had a conference where the women discussed business and commerce. Moreover, prizes were given to those with the best sales figures in the company, as well as those who had made large contributions to local charities. In May 1918, Walker moved into her new home called Villa Luaro. Her Italianate-style mansion cost her $250,000 to build and was designed by an accomplished African-American architect called Vertner Tandy. The house is located in Irvington-on-Hudson, New York. While in New York, Walker gave lectures regarding political, economic, and social issues that existed in the US. Throughout her life, she fought for the rights of African Americans. During World War I, she advocated for the establishment of a training camp for Black Army officers. She also joined the Executive Committee of National Association for the Advancement of Colored People and was elemental in the organization of the Silent Protest Parade, which was attended by around 10,000 African Americans in order to protest lynchings and violence faced by African Americans. Furthermore, Walker donated $5,000, around $75,000 in today's money, to the NAACP's anti-lynching fund. Sarah Walker died in her mansion on the 25th of May 1919 due to kidney failure and hypertension, aged just 51. A funeral service took place in her home, Villa Luaro, and she was later buried in Woodlawn Cemetery in the Bronx, New York. When she died, Walker was the richest African American woman in the States. She had only recently become a millionaire, as 2 years earlier she had stated that she wasn't yet a millionaire, but hoped to become one soon in order to use that money for the good of others. Her net worth was estimated between $500,000 and $1 million. In her will, she left 1/3 of her estate to her daughter. Meanwhile, the rest was donated to various charities and institutions. Her daughter, Alelia Walker, became the president of Madam C.J. Walker Manufacturing Company and an important part of the Harlem Renaissance. The Madam Walker Theatre Center in Indianapolis started construction prior to Walker's death. It was finally opened in 1927. For decades, it would go on to be an important cultural center for African Americans. The theatre, as well as her mansion, Villa Luaro, were later listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Finally, in 1981, the Madam C.J. Walker Manufacturing Company ceased operations. As part of its Black Heritage series, the US Postal Service issued a stamp of Walker in 1998. In honor of Walker's legacy, Sundial Brands and Sephora launched a cosmetic line called Madam C.J. Walker Beauty Culture. Thank you everyone for listening to this video on Madam C.J. Walker. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, leave me a like and a comment down below. And if you have any suggestions, please leave them down below in the comments or send them to my email. And if you're new, why not subscribe? That's all from me, so I'll see all of you in the next Forgotten Life. Thanks!